which is Musette in Suzuki Book Volume 2, and that's number 2 in the set of short pieces. So right here in the beginning, we can see that there's a C with like a slash in the middle. That's not a centavo sign though, so don't get confused. This is actually called cut time. The C without the slash is called common time. And in common time, we count 4/4, and in cut time, we literally just cut that into half. And so cut time is equivalent to 2/2 as time signature. So that is what will you be basing on as time signature for this piece. That's Musette by Johann Sebastian Bach. Alright, it's pretty simple. In the first system, you can see that there are separate bows with a combination of quarter notes followed by 2 8 notes. And of course, we have a slur right on the third measure. And then we have consecutive 8 notes on second to the last measure of the first system with 2 slurs. And then a half note up bow on the last measure. So basically, just learn your notes first as always. That's what we always do when we start learning a piece. Learn your notes, know your bowings and your fingerings. That's all we have to do at first, alright? Let's try to play first system. It goes something like this. And then, of course, we see the repeat sign. Repeat sign, once again, is like parenthesis. If you see a repeat sign, you try to look for where it started and where it ends, and you repeat that whole phrase just once. And then after repeating that whole phrase, we go to our second system, and it starts with the forte and on the E string. So once again, it's still a combination of a quarter note followed by 2 8 notes, and then consecutive 8 notes but slurs. There's a combination of slur and separate bows here. Learn your notes, no slurs, and then of course followed by the bowing. It's 4th quarter now, and I assume that by now you have understood and have learned how to write the correct bowings in each phrase, alright? I'm going to play the second system and end on the first bar, only in the half note of the third system first measure, alright? It goes something like this. Just observe the combination of the 8 notes and the slurs and the separate bowings. It's a combination of those 3, alright? So, observe. So I ended on the first measure of the third system, and what I did there is an up bow. If you notice right after that half note, there's kind of like this sign. 2 slashes. Now 2 slashes actually means bow lift. So that's actually a sign that means to lift your bow. You have to literally lift your bow off the string before proceeding to the next note. You're going to see that again in the first measure of 4th system, right there, right after the half note. You're going to do a down bow once again, alright? So always remember, 2 slashes means lift your bow, alright? So I'm going to try to play once again, but I'm going to start from the first measure of 3rd system on that half note up bow, and then observe how I lift my bow before playing on the next open string E. It's something like this. So what I did when I came back is, when I lifted my bow, I let my bow touch the string before playing. So I have to catch it first, catch, play. Okay? It's not like this. No, we're not going to hammer on the string. Instead, we're going to catch and play. That's how to lift your bow properly. Moving on, let's proceed to our 3rd system. I'm going to play it once again. It's actually similar to our 2nd system. I'm going to stop on the first measure of 4th system, but only until that half note, right before we lift our bow. Alright? Observe how I do the combinations of quarter notes followed by 8 notes that are separate, and then 8 notes that are slurred followed by separate 8 notes. So observe keenly. This is the 3rd system right after the bow lift. part is a bit tricky since we have combinations of two slurs and separates right at the end of the third system. 4 consecutive 8 notes going down right before we play that half note on the first measure of the fourth system. That's open string A. And then notice right after the bow lift sign is we have another down bow on the same string. I'm now in fourth system, first measure. So what you're going to do is still lift your bow, open string A, half note. Lift your bow, catch the string, and play. Once again, we're going to avoid hammering. That's another kind of technique, but for this piece, we're going to catch the string first and then play right after every bow lift. Alright, that should be clear enough. Now for the last part, I'm going to have to play from the fourth system first measure right after the bow lift. So this one's probably the hardest part for this piece since it's a combination of 4 8 notes, and you notice the last 3 measures of the fourth system. It's a combination of 4 8 notes on different strings. We're going to play on 2 strings here. So there are fingerings available and provided here. All you have to do is do it slowly, practice it slowly. Remember to play no slurs at first when you're still learning the notes. And then of course, learn your bowings properly. Try to do the correct bowings. Alright? So we're going to do fourth system right after the bow lift. You have to repeat it back to the second measure since, remember, repeat signs are like parentheses. So after that last part in the fourth system, that up bow half note of third finger A, you're gonna have to go back to the repeat sign from measure 5, and that's on the first measure of the second system. So that should be clear enough. Just a few reminders before we end. I just really want you to remember 3 important things while learning a piece. First, you have to know your notes, and then you have to know your bowings. And then of course, comes next the phrasing. When you do your notes, you don't want to do the slurs immediately. You want to do it one by one, separate bows. Alright? And of course, after doing that, you can apply the slurs, the exercise that we did on slurs. If it's 4 consecutive, what you're going to do is divide your bow into 4. And if it's an up bow, start in the middle or in the upper part of your bow. That's how you practice slurs, and once you get the hang of it, you can combine it. So it's without the cuts already. And if it's too hard, go back to this one. That's how you practice slurs. But make sure, of course, you know your notes right before you practice that one. Alright, so going back to learning the whole piece as a whole, once you know your notes, once you've learned your bowings and your dynamics and articulation, you want to know what musette means so that you'll be able to express it easily. Musette is actually a type of dance. It's actually a type of dance in the Baroque era where people play this kind of music, this piece, and people dance along to it. So you have to make it feel like it's a dance. And then, right before the music starts, you can see right just above the first few notes is Andante Pastoral. Andante Pastoral is actually, in definition, it means slow and with pastoral simplicity. So simple lang and light and elegant, because it's like a waltz. Imagine yung parang GS prom. It's like kind of that kind of idea when they dance along with this kind of music. Alright, so to wrap it up, I'm going to play the whole thing with repeats so that you'll be able to have a guide. Alright? So this is Musette by Johann Sebastian Bach in D major. D major meaning 2 sharps. So that was Musette. I want you to practice this really slow and try to learn your notes carefully and your bowings and everything else that's important and be able to perform this properly. Please stay safe and I'll see you on the next lecture video.